Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is. I think it's, 4:30 in the afternoon, and in the car today, on the way home. So I'm going to title this one today on Tuesday, February 13th, thoughts to keep me awake, because, it's always a fun time to be stuck in the car and not being able to really do much other than sit in the car and wait for other cars to move, and then it's just like, yeah, it's traffic. Well, can't do much else about that, just because of the fact that, work is 30 miles away, and 30 miles away in Los Angeles / Orange County speak is kind of like nice knowing you. You might as well just say, this, you can double the time. 30 miles does not equal 30 minutes. And depending on the time of the day and the time of the week, it could be an hour, it could be an hour 25, it could be anything. So, yeah. I'm currently in Buena Park right now, about to get onto the 91 freeway, and just trying to pass the time. It's been an interesting few days so far, and today, first day back from a 3-day weekend, which very fortunate that we have. At my district, we have 2 consecutive 3-day weekends, which I get to use not to take a break. Yeah. Looks like my schoolwork is starting to pile up pretty badly, and it's getting quite interesting. Especially like yesterday, I'm thinking, oh, I have a day off, but I ended up spending 7 hours of it sitting at a Panera, drinking iced coffee and iced tea, and trying to get through all of these assignments. It was great. So, and I'm still not done yet. I'm still kind of just chiseling away at things. I'm hoping that if I can finish enough of this, I can probably try to sneak out and do some fishing. But if you've been watching on Instagram and things like that, I'm still just enjoying the fact that I have 2 new rats in my care, and they're very fluffy and very chubby. So they're going to be on special diet for a while. There's going to be quite a bit of that. And so Lou and Flanders are hanging out at home, and putting them on a very steady diet of carrots and cucumbers and kale and all sorts of good things that I probably should be eating more of. Yes, the rats do eat better than I do, which I kind of find funny. So I have that going on, and that's pretty much what Sunday involved. What I thought was only going to take a few hours ended up taking most of the half of an entire day, but it was basically a whole drive to Malibu to drop off 2 rats that had the respiratory issues, and then in exchange for, plus about 175 pounds of food, and then 15 rats to send back down to Orange County, with 2 of them making their final stop with me. So there's a lot of that. So a lot of rat rescue going on, a lot of other cool things, and it's been a very interesting time. So today, I was thinking, should I do just a live where I just kind of babble for a while, while I'm sitting in traffic, which is much better than trying to doze off. And I said, hey, why not? If you're in, you can say hi. If you have any random questions I can answer for you, please feel free to put them in the comments, and I'll take a look. And just kind of go from there. So yeah, last few days have been rat rescue and all sorts of things, and hockey on Fridays, which I think this upcoming week I do have a game. I have to double check what time that is, which is good stuff. Updates on Eleanor. So currently Eleanor is still in the shop. I have not received any additional news, other than the fact that the day that I dropped her off at the shop that was getting towed there, it turns out that I did completely run out of brake fluid in the hydraulic reservoir of my clutch. What that translates to in basic English is the liquid that's supposed to be where my clutch is, because I don't have a cable clutch, I have a hydraulic clutch that looks like kind of a brake. There was no more liquid, and because there was no more fluid, actually brake fluid, it didn't have any power to pull the clutch plate back so that I could move freely with the clutch pulled in. So that was a problem. The current speculation is that whatever clutch fluid, brake fluid you want to call it, I had left was leaking out on the freeway as I was riding toward work on Wednesday. So that's my explanation for why Ellie could not move any further back last week, and then I had to get towed back. I'm still waiting to see what their progress is on getting the other service done on my bike, but needless to say, Ellie is going to get the work that she needs, and I'm probably going to be without her for at least another week, depending on how long it's going to take me to get the parts in, to get everything done, and all that stuff. So currently, I am on the Ellie Weight Watch, Ellie Watch. My other motorcycle, Pam, is actually with Evan right now, and he's currently borrowing that because his motorcycle needs some service. So I'm in the car for a little while. Yeah, it happens. So other cool things that I found today. So if you were watching on Instagram, I'm about to get into some sunlight here. This is I'm entering the 91 westbound here. It's a little sunny. I'll be stuck here for a little while. But, so if you seen a few things on Instagram today, I had to go digging into a giant storage container in the back of the junior high that I work at, and there's a lot of old stuff in there. And so one of the cool things that I found in there was this planetarium model that was inside while I was looking for iPad keyboards. And so I brought it out, and I was with the custodian, and he had told me that it was something that he had salvaged because someone was about to throw it out, so he kept it. He hid it with all the library stuff in hopes that, we'll find some use for it. Well, just for fun, it turns out that the darn thing is actually worth a ton of money and is actually quite rare and sought after. So I'm hiding it in a special place. That's an interesting little tidbit, but I found out because looking at the imprints on it and realizing that it's a model that was actually made in Michigan by a company that's still around, of all things, but they do make new versions of this particular model. However, they're cheaper and they're made in China, so everything's been outsourced. So it's one of those things where if you get a vintage version of something, don't let it go. It's kind of like when you find like a vintage Singer sewing machine, and you can still get the parts for it. And then the other part that was really cool was finding a electric typewriter from 1985, and that was pretty cool too. So that was the other thing. And so I was kind of messing around with that and doing some video and some filming about that. I have to remember that this district has been around for a very long time, and some of the schools that have been in Fullerton School District have been around long enough to where a bunch of things can just get hidden in storage for decades, and then no one will ever find them until somebody actually does and then puts them somewhere. So I'm discovering things that haven't been pulled out of storage in years or have been in the school building for decades, and so now I'm finally getting a chance to play with these things. This is not the first time that I've seen some really old stuff. Other things that I've seen have been lists of compatible projector bulbs with projectors that are assigned to certain rooms. Now, obviously, nobody uses overhead projectors anymore, and there are probably many people in the younger generations who don't even know what an overhead projector is. But there were still lists of inventory for bulbs. I thought that was kind of funny. And then, of course, there's also other random things like floppy drives and zip drives. And pretty soon we're going to get to a point where somebody's going to look at a VHS recorder and just go, what the heck is a VHS? We're getting to that point. One of the things, though, that kind of made it a bit depressing was I came back from lunch, and there were a couple students, taking a makeup test in the media center region of where I hang out in my normal desk. And I had a student ask me what time it was. So I told the student, I said, the clock's right over there, you can go look. First thing the student tells me is, I don't know how to read that kind of clock. What kind of clock did I tell her to look at? I told her to look at an analog one. It's the one with the standard hands and the seconds, and all the three hands, the seconds, the hour, and the minute hand. I was just told by a 7th grader that they didn't know how to read an analog clock. I'm thinking in my head, wait a minute. Being able to read an analog clock is a basic survival skill. I don't know how you can get away with life. Well, okay, fine, but I can see how you can get away with life without having to look at an analog clock. But it's still kind of embarrassing when you're coming to the time and age where, you're seeing numbers thrown at you instead of being able to decipher it with your hands. Now, I have a little bit of a personal preference when it comes to watches. is that I am a fan of analog clock watches, analog style with the hands. The only time that I'll ever find a reason to use a digital one is if it has additional features that I'm going to need. Altitude, temperatures, things like that. And even then, it's extremely rare. I don't wear watches like I used to because of the fact that I ride motorcycle gloves. But at the same time, I'm looking at it going, how can you not read analog? You learn that in first grade. You're probably half asleep in first grade trying to learn it. You probably learned it in kindergarten, at least you try to. You would think that would be the case. But no. I've also come to the realization that, we're coming to a generation that doesn't know how to drive stick shift. I personally, even though I did learn how to drive stick shift later in life, I still think it's important to learn how to drive stick shift. Understanding how the transmission works is a good thing, especially if you're trying to, if you're out, somewhere where you may have to drive a car that does not have an automatic. That's just my preference. It's something that I just recommend. But, I was actually reading about something the other day. I was actually reading something about something the other day where a lady was carjacked at gunpoint by 3 teenagers that they attempted to drive off in her car, realizing that it was a stick and they had no idea how to drive the stick shift car. They abandoned the car and the lady ended up never losing her car. I thought that was kind of funny. Not sure what's been going on with my throat lately, but sometimes after, talking for a bit, I get a little bit in my throat and a little bit itchy, and it's kind of weird. But anyway, I digress. Obviously, I just do these live videos to stay awake. But I think I have a bad feeling, and maybe I could be wrong here, but I think it is much easier to fool the current generation or to mess with the current generation and prevent them from doing really, really, simple things by just merely making them think for themselves. I know that this is probably an argument that is made between generations, from one to another. But considering that there's a lot of things that we grow up with, and I consider myself, one of those mid-generation people, saw the end of one type of technology and the beginning of another. When you get to a point that, people can't tell time anymore or know how to read a map properly because everything is so automated. I understand that these are the same people that are learning other skills that, we in our generation, are a bit behind on and they're growing up into. And, yes, there's a pros and cons and give and take to that, but there are just some things that I have to consider, at least within a gap of 30 years, that you have to at least be able to know. And, it's going to get to a point where if you cannot send a simple email, yes, you are going to be in a very, very tight spot. And yes, that is the fact now. But being able to tell time on something that doesn't show you the numbers straight out, that might be useful sometimes. It's just a suggestion, but I just kind of throw it out there. But anyway, finally kind of touching back into Los Angeles County here. I'm passing Artesia Boulevard here on the 91, so it's going to be a little while till I get back. I'm definitely not going to have enough material to work with here for this entire 1 hour drive, but I figured I would just pop in and, say hi, just because I'm here, and all that stuff. And Wednesday is going to be interesting, and I'm not going to broadcast on Wednesday, but Valentine's Day is going to be weird. Actually, both Evan and I are going to be heading up to Redlands, and of all places. I'm going, are you kidding me? Basically, Egypt. I'm being sent to Egypt for a videography assignment that is going to require both of us because we have 2 subjects that are on the same team, and so the game that we're both filming has to be shot in 2 different ways because of the nature of the film. So, but the caveat is, because it's CIF playoffs, we have to go all the way to Redlands to film. Now, Redlands from Fullerton is approximately 52 miles, but to drive from Los Angeles, basically, or at least my house for starters, I'm probably looking at close to 80. So I have to be a little creative about how we're gonna get there. So that's that. So I don't know. So the question I have is, how are you guys spending your Valentine's Day? Are you gonna be doing anything cool? Watching some movies? Anything, having some fun, relaxing, just enjoying your own company? I mean, there's a lot of things that we could be doing. I mean, last year for Valentine's Day, I didn't celebrate it either. It was on a Tuesday. I was actually assisting a friend with a personal issue, and that which was resolved later that evening. But my Valentine's Day has been quite weird. I mean, I can remember Valentine's Day that I had back in 2014, and it was actually a very bittersweet Valentine's Day, because when I thought about the situation I was in at the time, and I glanced at it very briefly in one of my posts this morning about today being the 4th anniversary of my return to California, and there was a lot. Well, I mean, if I had to start with the reason why I had to come home was after I had spending 4.5, almost 5 years in Ohio. I came home due to a very sudden divorce, and so having to pick up very, very quickly. And this was done with the help of friends and people who I considered as friends at the time. It was a very tough time, And it's the thing with any holiday that has to do with something personal. Everyone's going to there's going to be someone out there who's going to take a holiday or take a special day that is celebrated by many people and associated with something that may not be very positive. And so, the worst thing, and it's one thing that I can say that about Christmas, I can say that about Mother's Day and Father's Day, which are two holidays I also avoid, is that as much as we want to enjoy our holidays and cherish the memories that we do have and all of the experiences that we have within these memories, it is difficult to try to draw a line between being happy and also just not gloating about the whole thing completely. It's difficult because you want to be happy, you want to be proud of what you do and the enjoyment of the time. But I think every holiday there's always going to be someone who has to process the day a lot differently and has to acknowledge their feelings that aren't as positive as we stereotypically think of them to be. So there's always that. Valentine's Day, I think as the years have gone by since I've come home, I've gotten a lot better. And there are days, especially whenever Valentine's Day falls during the week, I usually just think of it as another day because I'm too busy to even think about anything else past life. But for those, so I don't want to be a killjoy completely and just say, that holidays suck. If you're celebrating that day, Valentine's Day tomorrow, in a way that incorporates that whole theme of love, togetherness, and just embracing those happy feelings. I really hope that you do, and that it is enjoyable, and you do whatever you plan on doing, and you have a great time. I mean, granted that stuff like that usually doesn't need a special day, but whenever we think about how commercialized many of these days are, I guess there has to be a reason to designate the time that chocolate sales need to spike because everyone needs chocolate, right? I think the statistic goes is that between Valentine's Day and Easter is the highest, the largest grossing sale of chocolates during the normal fiscal year. And stereotypically you would think that would actually belong to Halloween, but apparently more chocolates are sold. And I have to find out if this fact is still true. But they're saying that between Valentine's Day and Easter, there are more chocolates sold between Valentine's Day and Easter than Halloween. I could see that being the case. That's a lot of boxed chocolates and bunnies and stuff like that. And that's a crap ton of chocolate. Although I really like those Cadbury mini eggs with the sugar coating. Those things are really good. I really like those. So, yeah, I'll be trying to... Of course, the other thing too, hashtag grad school problems. It's trying to find the balance between homework and sanity and work. So I'm glad that I'm only taking 2 classes per semester, because being able to handle this plus the workload of a 40-hour work week, yeah, it's not the most fun thing to do sometimes. I'm just glad that the material is good, is fun and interesting, because otherwise I'd be like, what is my purpose other than serving butter? So that's what's up. You know, and as I'm crawling toward the 605 here, I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to go pick up packages at my mailbox, which is all the way in Marina already. I'm like, you know, I really miss my motorcycle very much. Let's see how much I can do about it. All of them, right? Anyway, with that being said, hope you guys have a good rest of the day, and stay chill, stay aware. Yeah, don't go too nuts. Don't party too hard. I think we needed some of those, Valentine's Day hangovers. Had too many chocolate boxes. Stayed up too late. Drank too much wine. Your skin's still soaked from having that really, really long, bath bomb, bubble bath. The stuff that happens on Valentine's Day, right? Stereotypical. Anyway. Alrighty. So yes, be good, be kind, rewind. Any thoughts? Feel free to put them in the comments. I will get back to you later. Be good. Don't need too much sugar. You'll end up flying all over the place. Curb your enthusiasm. I'll talk to you later.